This is True Buzz, that Mary J. Now we ain't new to this. For my stoners and for my cannabis enthusiasts, never heard a show as good as this. Number one, it's the best. Bringing in many special guests in the industry of cannabis. Business owners to growers, even artists you know of. So sit back and just roll up. Perfect show for my smokers. True Buzz, hey.
Hey everybody, welcome to the True Buds Show podcast. We got Robert Lund on today, Chief Creative Officer of Studio TBD, doing some really cool stuff within the cannabis space. Your formulations of your edibles, your beverages look super cool. I meant to go down to the Green Goddess actually in Venice and grab one. I saw you guys are in there, so definitely going to try that, man. And thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. I feel compelled to apologize for my terrible background, in comparison to yours, which is amazing. I need to build something like that. Yeah, no, happy to be here.
Thanks, man. Thanks. It looks good. It works with, the white shirt you got on. It's a nice thing going on there.
Yeah, so, it's like the designer in me. It's like only two colors. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's a good place to start off with the vision of Studio TBD. And I don't know much about. I'm learning about Web3. I honestly don't know a whole lot about it. So I'll be kind of interested to kind of hear your concept or how you kind of came about that.
Absolutely. Let's start with like the TBD. So basically, Studio TBD is what we call the company, and we see ourselves as a creative collective that work with cannabis and Web3. And that was not perfectly clear from the beginning that was what it's going to be. Me and my business partner, we started with a product. So we had this product, and that story is kind of interesting. So I grew up in Sweden, and I moved to New York like 11 years ago, something like that. And what's kind of interesting is that I had been like an avid user of the plant since I was 14, 15, something like that, but in Sweden. So it was a lot of hashish. The weed, I don't think I saw weed until like buds until I was maybe like 24 or something.
Wow.
We just didn't have it because as it dries out in just a couple of weeks. So there was like really no point in exporting it to Sweden back in the day. Now there's a ton of weed on the black market in Sweden. But back then it was most hashish, and the weed that's there is not. It's not the strains that wins the Cannabis World Cup. Let's say that. So when I came to America and I started, I had a really premium setup with some guy who came with like a little box with like 7 different strains in it, and it was just so strong, man. It was just like, oh wow, this is a different level, and that was cool in the beginning. But then after a couple of years, it started to affect me. I could feel like this is not for me. This is not good for me, So I started experimenting with it, and I learned a little bit about it, and I realized that there's something called CBD, and so I actually sourced CBD flower here in New York, like maybe in 2017, earlier than that, probably like 2014, which was like a miracle. It was impossible to get your hands on. THC weed was everywhere, but CBD weed was like really hard to get. But I found a source for it, and I started mixing my joints. So like just took a little nugget of THC weed and then the rest CBD, and that just it vibes so much better with me. And those joints sort of became popular among my friends. They were like they became Robert joints. So at parties and stuff, people came up to me like, "Hey, is that a Robert joint?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, "Oh, can I have a puff?" So I started bringing like 6, 7 joints to every party. And fast forward to January of 2021, when I got introduced to my current business partner, Victor, who's an ex-hedge fund trader. We started talking, and he said, he's like, "I have this product, it's like a beverage, but we can also make edibles. And it's a ratio between THC and CBD." And he went on this long-winded explanation, so I got all the science behind it. I'm like, well, that was like some new information, but what's also interesting is I already consumed the plant in this way. So it was like, and he was like, "Really?" Because he was so used to like having to really give a hard sell on why that was a good idea. And I'm like, yeah. So my background is in branding and marketing, and his, as I said, he's an ex-hedge fund trader. So it was like, all right, this is a pretty good fit on paper. And we also had sort of created this product, not knowing about each other in a different way. He's always obviously he had already made edibles and drinks, and he had like market tested it for a couple of years, and I had just done it for myself and when on using flower. So it just felt correct. So that's where we started. And for anyone who's listening, when you that has created a product, you know that you have a lot of time on your hands when you are developing a product, because it takes time to make it, and like each round has that you want to approve or tweak or change, there's weeks between them. So while we were basically in development and early production of the product, Victor started talking to me about crypto, because he was really into that because of his hedge fund background, but like automated market making and like all these complex financial things that crypto makes easier. And I sort of got really intrigued by it too, because I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole for too much, but it basically solves a bunch of problems. And then NFTs sort of blasted onto the scene sometime during 2021, and we were like, wait a minute, this is like the perfect tool for startup. And so we knew that we wanted to be some sort of crypto, have some sort of crypto in our DNA. But when Web3 came, or NFTs came, where it's sort of the same time as the term Web3 started becoming a term that was widely used, we realized that, all right, this is the perfect opportunity. So we basically started thinking about what we could do within Web3 to help support the startup and the marketing around it. And we sort of came to a conclusion that NFTs plus DAOs, or in NFTs plus some sort of organization around it, might be like the future of how you actually will fund your startup. So we wrote a white paper about it because we had learned so much. We had to put it down somehow. And it became a white paper that is actually on our website that's called Launchpad 2.0. And in the meantime, we also created our first NFT program. So we basically, what's public now with our Web3 department, let's use that term, is a Studio TBD membership NFT. And if you hold one of those, at least one, you get 50% off all our products in all our own stores. So right now we only have an online store, but we're planning, concept stores and all that stuff. So if you're a holder and it's only gonna be 10,000 of them, you get lifetime 50% off everything that we sell. So that's an easy promise to make, and that that you can hold, because in the world of Web3, there's a lot of promises, and there's a lot of promises broken as well. So we have a lot of interesting plans for it, but right now what we promise and what we know that we can hold is 50% off forever. So that's how we have eased into that part. But right now we're really focusing on sales, growing our fan base, growing our sales, and creating more products. So yeah, it's been an interesting start, let's say.
That's awesome. Thank you for all that, the background there. That's so cool how those synergies came together with you and your partner, and from smoking those joints back then, and now you have these products across. I think you're in 35 states. I saw on your website.
We can ship to 35 states, because there's two different things too. So we have beverages. We have our drinks in licensed dispensaries in California. So Green Goddess being one of them, and we also made hemp-derived edibles that has the same ratios. So the ratios in our products are, we have one SKU that's called Mellow, which is 4 milligrams of THC and 25 milligrams of CBD. And we have one called High, which is 10 milligrams of THC and 20 milligrams of CBD. So those are two different drinks and also two different edibles. So but the edibles are hemp-derived. So they're basically federally legal, because 10 milligrams of THC, we managed to get it down just under the 0.3% hemp rule. So we can ship them. We sell them online, so we can ship them to 35 states. You just have to be 21. That's it.
Awesome. I
And
love
we're
hearing
also
that.
in like, yeah, we're also in like 100 stores here in New York and New Jersey. So that's really exciting. So yeah,
Yeah, hitting
it's
both
been an
angles, I
interesting
think is
start.
super cool how you're doing. I think that's kind of the future in a lot of ways to be able to hit the bigger markets that, like you're saying, with the hemp derived and still be able to be in the retail across, you know, the legal rec states is really interesting concept to me.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different theories here and a lot of different practices, but the way we see it is that we just follow our mission, and our mission is to bring cannabis to the masses. That's also why we have ratio products. We don't have like a super strong THC product. We think that the future of the mainstream market, the future of the mainstream market for cannabis and hemp will be low to mid levels of THC and high levels of CBD. Like I'm fairly certain that that's going to happen, and we're already seeing tendencies of
And I see
that
that
happening.
too. Sorry to interrupt you there. I was getting excited when you're saying I see that too. I'm doing a bunch of these events and lounges in LA, like the Artistry in the Woods. With the company I
Yeah,
work for. And I see we have one thing that's 1 milligram CBD, like you're saying, or 1 milligram THC, 15 CBD, and it's really popular amongst people. And I being there like with the boots on the ground in these lounges is super cool to like exactly like what you're saying. I knew it, but now I'm like seeing it firsthand, people coming in and people out of
right.
state, and it's exciting to see. And you know, that's why I love beverages so much. Not only does it, you know, kind of help break the stigma and put it out there, but the rapid onset effect and kind of just the
Mhm.
functionality of like how you have your, you know, your different ratios. It's just super interesting to me. And I don't know, I'm just a huge beverage proponent, so I could go on all day about it.
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean that it's just natural, right? That beverage is going to be the main way that people consume cannabis in social settings. Like that's a given. The question is just like how long will it take and before it's huge? And when you're in the market, and you're in the business, that doesn't really matter. So people can debate that, and people do, and that's fine. But we're on our path, so we're just walking forward. And like you're saying, it's like the whole ratio thing that you can be so precise in beverages and edibles. I think it's a game changer that the mainstream world has no idea exists. You know, I'm European, and like my European friends, they're like, "Oh yeah, I've heard about edibles." Like edibles for Europeans, by and large, is still like muffins or cookies. You know,
Yeah.
like the whole gummy situation is like that's very new. And to a lot of Americans too, that's like, oh right, there's gummies. You know, I'm not talking about the people who are they're already in like have been to a dispensary. A lot of Americans never set foot in a dispensary. So it is a concept that way. And you look at the numbers, the edibles and drinks are taking market share, even though it's slow. But that's just the nature of the game. Everything is slow. So until it's not. So yeah, we basically we work with edibles and drinks under our brand called TBD, and but we are a brand studio, so we are already working on a vape pen that will go under a different brand, which is a sister brand, which is actually my old brand, which I had a skincare company with cannabis in before. So we are going to keep developing products and design the experience of cannabis for people, basically. And I think where our expertise in both marketing and business, as well as the plant, obviously, is really fits for the mainstream. So the mainstream consumer that is very underrepresented right now, but will not be underrepresented in the future, basically.
And I think that's awesome too with the direct to consumer aspect, because that's my thought with a lot of these people who might not want to go into the dispensary. It could be intimidating or something. So like being able to have access to products online to order from the comfort of your home makes so much sense. Because I even sometimes for myself in LA, I'm just on the road visiting them. But I remember when I wasn't doing sales in cannabis, I just like doing delivery, you know, just not brace the traffic sometimes. So like I think that's really cool doing the now with the can you order your drinks online in California or are they strictly in retail right now?
You can order them through iHeart Jane.
Okay, cool.
So you check out our Leafly page. Just go on to Leafly and search for TBD or Studio TBD, and you can find our drinks there, and you can buy them if you're in the vicinity of our dispensaries through iHeart Chain. We can deliver it to you. Yeah,
I'm
so that
definitely
can
gonna
happen.
try 'em, man.
Otherwise, yeah, cool. That's
I've been
amazing. And
I've been doing a Thirsty
we
Thursday video. Sorry to interrupt you.
oh wow, really? I haven't seen those. Yeah, I really
Yeah.
want to check those out. I mean, yeah, I'd be happy to send you some samples.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to try them. The flavor sounded interesting, tasty, some different style flavors. I feel like that, so that what was the process like that? I know you said you did, different iterations and how it can take a while coming out with the products. Were those flavors already kind of set in stone when you started, or did they kind of develop as you went on?
Well, here's where brand comes in, I would say. Like I'm a brand person. That's what I do. I create and maintain brands. That's my expertise. And I feel like the whole creative industry, especially when it comes to branding, is extremely misunderstood, mismanaged, and just everything is wrong. Um, so when I, it's complex, right? So first of all, and this is where creatives get too arrogant. First of all, you need a business case, right? First, you have to have a business case, and then you can start talking about brand. A lot of because entrepreneurs in the let's say 30 years ago, if you're an entrepreneur, you were probably an engineer. Most likely, you were an engineer, and you had some sort of invention. Those were the people who became entrepreneurs. It's only in the last 10 years that creatives have become entrepreneurs, and both both sort of personalities have a problem. The engineers, they tend to create brands and companies that are extreme cookie cutter, looks exactly the same as a competitor. They might have a little USP of like, oh, it's a bit cheaper, it's a bit better, or whatever, right? Whereas like creative people, they have a tendency to create a brand that is like maybe sometimes really, really good, but then they might lack the actual business case behind it. So we knew that we had a business case with the ratio and our mission. So then the question becomes, all right, so what should it taste? And to know that, I think that's where brand has to take over. So what's kind of interesting for me was that when I started figuring out what the brand should be for this product, I obviously started by looking at everything I could get my hands on in the cannabis industry. So I did research for like 2 weeks. I just stared at brands for 2 weeks, and it just didn't make sense to me. Because usually you can make a little map and like, all right, American Express is there, Visa is there, MasterCard is there. Our credit card is going to be the blah 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 for young people or whatever. So we need to be over here. But I couldn't really create a map because the industry is so young. So there's everything is all over the place. Like value stuff can look like luxury, and things that look like luxury might be priced like value. It's like nothing makes sense to a brand person. So that's when we sort of realized through that process that mainstream is our target. And then the question becomes, how do you make a mainstream brand? And that's a question that no brand maker has ever had to ask themselves, because the mainstream brand always exists. If you ask me to create a beer brand, then Budweiser is the mainstream brand. If you ask me to create a credit card, like I said, then Amex or MasterCard is the mainstream. And that's true for everything. And those companies, they weren't brands in the beginning. They were just companies. And then they became the biggest. And now that brand and that brand behavior is mainstream. So in cannabis, because there is no mainstream brand, because there is no mainstream cannabis market, you just don't have that to like put yourself in position towards. So now all of a sudden you have a problem that I had never been faced with before, and I think very few people have been faced with before. How do you make a mainstream brand in a market where there is no mainstream? So we start looking at culture. I'm gonna get to the flavors, I promise, but it's we started looking at culture and cannabis, and I'm not talking about all cannabis, like, but cannabis in the eye of mainstream is very, very today connected with like rap music and attitude and that whole thing that has been true since I think the early 90s. But before that, in the 70s, it was about peace, love, and understanding. And those things are quite different from each other. And even though rap music might be cool, I don't think that the mainstream cannabis consumer of tomorrow is going to adhere to the rap music culture just because it's cannabis. So we started talking about, all right, so what should cannabis be culturally in the future? And we basically landed in, it might sound boring, but we landed in two words: there's safe and fun. So safe, the ratio takes care of that, because that amount of CBD basically, both during the high, so short term, kills all the side effects from THC. You don't get anxiety, you don't get the drowsiness. You just get relaxed and high. But it also kills the side effects of THC long term as well, because there are long term side effects if you use pure THC products. If you add CBD to it, it kills those side effects too. There's a study that came out of the University of England, University of London, I can't remember, that clearly states this. So we're all right. So it's a safe way, but it should also be a fun way. And then like, all right, what is fun? And that's where like the flavors come from. So we there's a lot of beer, like cannabis beer or like cannabis this, cannabis seltzer, but we just we wanted to feel a little bit more fun and a little more light. So that's why we chose green tea peach lemonade. You know, it's like a super chill flavor. It's really good. You can drink like 2 or 3 in a row without getting tired of the taste. So yeah, we wanted to nail the fun, and that's why all our edibles are strawberry as well, because strawberry is fun.
Awesome.
So we basically use our brand. The brand decides the flavor.
What you just said about brand and like your attention to detail, that was some golden nuggets in there, man. Like, and how it all how it all works together, and that's pretty eye-opening to me. You know, I have this True Buds TV brand I kind of do as a fun thing, and I'm always just trying to learn about it, and it's just really like hearing you just say that, how important it is just to really pay attention now, like taking the time at the beginning to really hone in and figure that out. It's something I just took from that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty discriminatory process actually, because that's what it's all about. You discriminate against the things that you don't want your brand to be, and that's why some people that don't understand brand, they get really nervous about that. They're like, but what about in this instance, for example, like, so what about rap music connoisseurs? Are we just gonna go a different direction? Like, yeah, we are. Are they gonna follow? Maybe some of them will, maybe some of them won't, but that's fine. You know, you can't create something that is for everyone. Even if you're doing something mainstream, you have to discriminate against the niches, right?
Totally.
Against the fringes. And if you have a fringe brand, then you have to discriminate against mainstream, because otherwise you're nobody. And you know,
and like
so
what you're saying too about the brands, like some luxury brands maybe not, and just being deceiving. I hadn't kind of thought about that much, but it's so interesting seeing all these different products out there. Just to your point there, it's kind of crazy actually.
yeah. And it doesn't mean that it won't work. It can still work, but that's because it's my responsibility. It's like, I need a map. Like, here's the map. I need to be able to explain to my partner, like, here's the map. This is why we're doing this, and this is why we're not doing that. And you can just go with emotion and make those decisions on the fly. That's fine. It's just that that's not how I want to operate.
I respect that.
Because in the way I see the world, it's like that comes with a lot of risk. You might be in a bad mood one day than when you're making a pretty big decision, you know?
Yeah.
And
like
if you don't have like a higher thing, like a brand strategy to guide your decision making, it's all about how good you are in the moment. So to me, that just sounds risky to me.
yeah, that sounds, yeah, it's risky, it's stressful.
Yeah, and stressful. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I forget if I read it, just out of curiosity, little side note. Is that drink, is it carbonated, or is it like more like a just a flat?
It's flat. It's not carbonated. So yeah,
I like
it's
that.
like a green tea Arnold Palmer. That's sort of what it tastes like.
Cool. I really like that. And
Yeah.
it reminds me of a guy I had on the podcast. I don't know if you heard of Uncle Arnie's. He's really targeting, you know, the the high dose consumer 100 milligram like apple juices and stuff, but he did some really cool brand work at the beginning too. I found really interesting, and he really knew his market, like just like you're saying. He's like, I'm not going for this person. We're doing this, sticking to this. And I think for the past while they've been like one of the number one selling a beverage brand out here. So I just give a lot of props for what you guys are doing with the branding.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's really good. I mean, yeah, if you're clear, that helps, especially when you're trying to break through, you know. That's why you see a lot of household names. They have like a gazillion flavors and like a gazillion sugar levels and all that stuff. And it's like, but if you would introduce, let's say, Dr. Pepper today with all their different SKUs, it would be really confusing to the consumer. Like that's a luxury that you can add later when you're big. At least that's how I see things. But it also depends how much money you have. I mean, if you have $400 million to start your brand, then like, yeah, maybe not go with 2 SKUs. I don't know, but so I think it depends on a lot of things. Every situation is unique, and that's also where branding is really comes in and it's important. Like what do we need for the situation, you know? So yeah, it's been a really wild ride. It's been extremely cool to start out with a problem that I didn't even understand. Instead, it was like nothing in this process has been turnkey, or like there's nothing in this process where I can just like lean back on something I've done before and, oh yeah, all right, let's just do it like that. Like it's everything is new because the industry is new. And it might sound stupid, but I didn't understand that when I walked into it. I understood that, all right, this is a very, very small industry that will be huge. I understood that, but didn't understand that also meant that everything is new, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And that's what I like to say often too, is like it's forced me personally too, and a lot of people, I think it's like forced creativity in some ways to get around some of these legality barriers and marketing in other ways that just as a whole, I think the cannabis industry is so creative, you know, like I feel like even going into a shop and talking to bud tenders, so many of them are doing creative other things, and cannabis is just, you know, one of those things they do to help them make money. And I think that's part of the beauty in it too. And back again to the beverage of being able to just sip a beverage and work instead of having to smoke out a whole place. And like even my friends now who smoke heavy, and I still smoke a lot, but it's nice just to maybe give the lungs a break now or something every now and then with edibles and drinks. And um yeah, I was excited.
Yeah, and I don't know, this is just, I don't have any science to back this up, but I feel also that the effects of the CBD feels more potent in drinks and edibles. And I'm not talking about the buzz or the high really, but you know, if you're sore from working out, for example, if I smoke a lot of CBD, that doesn't really do anything. But if I eat or drink a lot of CBD, the soreness goes away way faster. So like, at least that is what I have experienced. I don't know if that's true. It might be a placebo thing as well, but I have the feeling that like the medicinal properties of CBD, it feels like they work better when you ingest it versus when you smoke it. Whereas like the THC stuff like that, that's super efficient if you smoke it.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. And like for me too, like my experience with CBD, I almost kind of had like a bad taste in my mouth like a couple years ago because I saw like infused like yoga pants that were CBD, like you know these crazy CBD products out there. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you know, I know there was value to it, but that was kind of in my head. Then I started actually consuming it more, and I'm like, oh wow, there is actually really something here. It's just another cannabinoid that I've been undervaluing. But that was kind
Yeah,
of
and also CBD without THC is, it still has the medicinal properties to some extent, but it it's not at all as efficient. It becomes effective because the THC helps boosts the CBD as well. So in our 425, for example, it it's a completely different experience from the 1020 because you basically get a CBD high because the THC boosts the CBD. But if you just ingest 25 milligrams of CBD, basically nothing happens. So there is also, it's all the combination of the two is the key. And that's why it was a wild time where everything had CBD in it. I'm like, that's not going to do anything, you know? But the ratio is, that's the key. Like if you look at the cancer medicines that are being developed, they're all ratios, all of them. Like they are all THC plus CBD, and that was like that that is just that together with all the research is also why we picked the name, because it's like, all right, all our products are going to be ratio products, so THC plus CBD equals TBD, so that's why we call it TBD as well. So yeah, that's the idea of the brand, basically.
I love that. And it's interesting to think too, like where it's going to go to with these other cannabinoids, and maybe something like CBG when I start experimenting with that more, and like just when there's more research around it, and like as you know, as TBD keeps growing and other things, are you trying to stick strictly to CBD, or are you open to adding other cannabinoids in your formulations?
So in the edibles, there are a bunch of minor cannabinoids, and there's a little bit of THCV. There is a little bit of CBN and CBG as well. We are taking it extremely seriously. So when we have developed the vape pen that's going to hit it's the hemp market, because it's an HHC plus CBD vape pen. When that hits the market in the coming weeks, uh, the development for that one, we went through a lot of iterations as well, because one thing that doesn't happen as much with beverages, but with both edibles and especially vapes, at least for me, vapes for smoking, it really gives me the munchies. And munchies can be nice, but it can also be really annoying, because it's no fun when you wake up next day and you raided your entire kitchen. So basically, we decided to put around, I think it's around 8% THCV in the vape pen. So, and it's also super mellow. There's a lot of CBD in there. So it's a really mellow product. So it's more like it's going to be like an all day vape. And you can basically vape that all day without getting the munchies because of the THCV, because it's appetite suppressing. So I think we're just scratching the surface right now on all these cannabinoids, and the ones that we are certain of, we're using it as creatively and clever as we can. But I feel like in 5 years, if we have this conversation, we're going to be talking about loads of cannabinoids that we don't even know the name of today, because I think there's like what 300-400 in them in the plant that they've found so far,
Yeah, it's
and
mind
we
blowing
just
when you
know
think
maybe,
about it. I'm
yeah,
like, and that
yeah, it's crazy.
THCV move in the vape, I think is great. Like, because I always like asking people like, what's kind of trending right now. I think the THCV is super hot. I saw like Pabst do a cool actually beverage. I haven't tried it yet, but they did like 10 milligrams of THCV in there.
Mm,
I would get that question pretty often from people too, like, oh, is there something for like an appetite suppressant? And I didn't have anything at the time, but it's just interesting with that one.
yeah.
THCA also interests me too. We used to have like I used to have sell a product called Pure Wana that was a live resin powder, and it had a lot of THCA in there. So some people we'd say don't put it in hot beverages because it would burn off some of the terpenes that were inherent in the powder. It was a live resin powder essentially. But some of my friends said they would put it in like coffee or tea, and their thought was that they like, basically decarb that THCA, so it doubled the dose. So it's kind of interesting.
Oh wow, wow,
Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, I don't know that much about TCA, to be honest.
I don't either. I'm trying to make a goal of it. I actually like to just start making more videos about it as a way to teach me and just put it out there. That's why I like making a lot of the content I do, is like it's like a good way for me to learn, but also share it out there is fun for me.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I think the whole what all you guys are doing with your podcasts and videos, I think that's is going to be a huge help, especially because a lot of the people I run into doing these kind of interviews or conversations, you all have a very scientific sort of angle on everything, and you're all really eager to tell this to the world, because I think that cannabis is one of the things that everybody knows what it is, but nobody has any idea what it is. Like, it's so misunderstood everywhere. It's misunderstood even among stoners, I would say. I think in every layer of society it's misunderstood, but in maybe different ways. So yeah, the whole content, the plethora of content that is like starting to grow out, and a lot of it is from California, is going to be extremely helpful moving forward, because it's such a complex topic that it needs long form conversation to make sense.
Totally, totally. And I always like to bring up like bud tenders too, because sometimes I feel like it's underestimated like what a task that is working in a retail shop with
Oh yeah,
thousands of SKUs. And I feel like most people are expect them to like know everything about it. And that's just like crazy. There's so much out there. And also with that, to your point of a lot of people not knowing, even like myself still to this day and in the past for sure. But I'll talk to people who I'm like, they're buying their, I'll ask them what they're getting, and I'll ask them if they know what's in it, or like ask them if they know what distillate is. And a lot of people just don't. they don't know exactly what they're ingesting, to your point. And it's also fun to educate that person on the spot and learn from them too. But it's been really eye-opening for me to see how many people might just buy a gummy, like it or whatever, and they don't necessarily know. And that's something interesting too, I feel like, is maybe like the brand buying component of different cannabis brands really interests me too. And I feel like Wild has done a really good job like that in the gummy world. But yeah, I'm just always, and that's why your guys' stuff really popped out at me. It's really well done. I could picture myself going to go get that can from seeing it, in a nice, like where I grab my drinks from Whole Foods or something.
Yeah. It's been an interesting, the aesthetics of it has been interesting because it's our logo is vertical, and that's just because of the shape of the can. So when I talk to my designers, I'm like, and one of them came up with this like vertical concept. I'm like, that's so interesting. And then I realized that there's not a single beverage brand that I've seen in the Western world that has a vertical logo type, which is insane because both the bottle and the can is vertical. So like the Miller Lite, they put like a big light on the side, but you have to basically take a horizontal logo and print it on vertically. Like that's common. But have a vertical logo, that's just and I started to think about it, and obviously it's like because in the beginning you could just have a tiny little label on bottles, and then that became a little label on cans, and then that became printed cans, and nobody ever thought to themselves like, hang on, we can print whatever we want on that thing. Why not make a vertical logo? So that was like a really cool moment as well. We're like, oh wow, we're gonna have a vertical logo. So, and I think it like again, like brand wise, your aesthetics should really, if it's well done, it should really signal what the brand is all about. And I feel like what TBD is all about, aside from the mission of bringing cannabis to the masses, it's also about just doing things in a different way. Like the cannabis industry, at least when we started, like there were basically no ratio products at all. And now that's starting to happen. But just doing things in a different way, I think is important for us, obviously, but also for the industry, that there are more brands and more startups and more companies that approach this extreme complex plant in different ways instead of just like falling in line with what everyone else is doing. Because I think we're going to see a lot of surprises in this industry in the coming years. So yeah, going into it with a completely like an alien brain, like just pretending you don't know anything about what's happening. Like I think that's the best way, and that's where we're going to see a lot of innovation in this industry, because there's, like I said, we're just scratching the surface. There's going to be a lot of things to be found out.
And like with that innovation component, I think it's so important also with like how many of like the same style, how many like just straight distillate gummies do we really need on the market that taste pretty similar? You know what I mean? Like, so I'm a huge fan of that differentiation. And you know what, with the companies I've worked for too, I realized that, getting that across to the consumer is always interesting too. And, that's why I try to come out with short things. I found sometimes I'm just so excited about it and I start, throwing out cannabinoids and stuff. I'm like, whoa, take a step back. I'm just trying to simplify it. So that's been a goal of mine too, is like having all the knowledge and then just really trying to distill it down for, everybody, is just a constant goal for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's what communication is all about. You have to have a depth in it, where like you need to be able to explain what you're doing in 5 seconds, but you can only do that if you can also do a deeper explanation that holds true to that's 2 hours. So that's basically what communication is. Like you have to, it's like when Quentin Tarantino writes movies, he knows the backstory of every character, but you don't have to, but he has to. That's the same thing. It's like you
I
have to
love
be
that.
able to boil it down, and then you have to be able to like know where that all came from.
I love that because, a dream of mine is to have my own product one day. I have my like cannabis brand, so like I'm a big believer in also that, and the like learning the cannabis sales side of it, being in the retail, kind of doing that boots on the ground stuff. I've learned so much over the past years that I know come down the road, that's all going to be super beneficial. Just kind of building that. And, you know, with the beverage things, so interesting. Like you said, in like 5 years, I could see it shooting up. And even in the past years of just being in an industry, is like 1% when I started. Now it's just slowly grabbing the share. But I'd also tell people too, like, we're not necessarily trying to compete with these other, we're trying to maybe compete with the gas station right next to who's selling beverages, not necessarily these joints.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I feel like, the market is growing, and it's like, and it's been tough. It's tough right now for a lot of cannabis companies. It's hard to get funding. Like everything is like, it's really tough because there was a lot of mistakes that were made in the beginning, and there was overinvestment in certain things, and it's still viewed as like a really tough market to get investments in. But that's going to change. Like we're seeing the rest of the economy is not doing too great, and that might get a little bit worse as well. So I think cannabis will be one of the big growth industries in the next 10 years, together with crypto and Web3. So that's another thing that I have to thank my business partner Victor for. Is like, we need to be where things are growing. Like that's where you want to be as an entrepreneur. And I think cannabis and crypto are going to be, cannabis and Web3 are really going to be the two big drivers that you can enter as an entrepreneur. I think nuclear power is probably also going to be on the right, but that's a
What's
completely
that?
different nuclear power or
Oh,
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But that's just like, that's a different thing. You can't just like waltz in and start a little startup for that. So when it comes to the startup world, like Web3 and cannabis are like that, I think that's going to be a place to be.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. One of my buddies is really into crypto. That's where I kind of try to learn from him. I don't know a lot, but I would say that I'm like, dude, we're in such cool spaces right now. You're doing crypto, I'm doing
Yeah.
cannabis. I think, and that's what we're trying to figure out too. Like, we need to figure out a way to marry these two together. So it's so awesome that you're doing that and have done it. And I
Yeah,
also,
we have. I think NFTs are a great tool for storytelling, and we have a story that we're going to tell through our NFTs, but we're not really there yet. So we're not talking about it. We're just focusing on the discounts right now and the membership, but we have a lot of interesting stuff in the pipeline. So hopefully, if you follow us, you're gonna see how one way of marrying the two might work together at least.
sweet. And how much is that? Like, if I go on your website to be a member, how does that process work?
You basically go to our Mint site, which you can find on our little corporate site. So the web address is studio dash tbd.io, and there's a big pink button you can click, and then you have to have a MetaMask wallet or some sort of Web3 crypto wallet, and you connect it and you mint a token. You can also buy it in the open market or OpenSea, but there's still some minting. We've sold like around 500, so there's a lot of them still to be sold, but we haven't really started pushing that yet. We're going to start that in a few months, so hopefully they're going to run out pretty quick. But you basically mint a token and you hold it in your wallet, and then and that gives you access to what you need to get those discounts. But like I said, we're building a pipeline of Web3 products, we can call them, that will come out in the next few months as well. So and a part of that is the storytelling aspect, where you will be able to basically trade in the membership NFT to a character series where you get a character as well. You're part of the story, and that's why I think I think NFTs are they've gotten a bad rep right now, but I think that world is just going to explode. Like, instead of watching a story, you can basically be in the story in a lot of different ways, and I think that's going to be really cool to explore over the coming years as well.
Yeah, I like the idea, and that's like what my buddy was saying. Is like the idea of like you can now own something and be within the story, like you're saying. He was using like real estate as an example. He's like, you could maybe make 100 of them, and now you could have 100 people potentially owning this thing.
Yeah.
And it's so cool.
Yeah, you're part of it. You're part of it. It becomes like the official fan club almost. Like, you're part of it. And we have holders in Asia, that have bought our NFT because they love our story and they want to be a part of it. But our products are obviously extremely illegal in large parts of Asia. So they can't get their hands on our cannabis product, but can be a part of it through the NFT, which is kind of cool.
Do you guys have I didn't look, but do you have an affiliate program or like an ambassador program you guys do?
We have a small affiliate program. We haven't really pushed that either. We want to find the right people. But yes, there's potential to become an affiliate. Absolutely. Uh, and I think also like because because you get 50% off our edibles, I know that already some people are using that to basically become wholesalers. So
That's it. Yeah.
there's a lot of interesting things that are
Totally.
happening. So yeah, fun world to be in for sure.
Totally, totally, man. And yeah, I mean, I think I know, and once again, thank you for hopping on this call late. I know it's much later in the East Coast, man. So thanks again. And
No, thanks for having me. I love talking about this with people who know a bunch of stuff and who are interested, and you probably know a lot more about cannabis than I do. So yeah, it's always interesting.
I'm a big believer, like we're saying, just always, I'm always a student, always trying to learn. And like you said, it's super fun industry. The times are so exciting. And that's why I think it's like, sure, like it is hard times right now in cannabis for sure. But like the reward of just being able to hold my head up high and know I'm like doing good in the world, and your products helping people, with your different ratios, you're improving lives. Like that to me is also a deep part that I like remind myself if it's a tough day sometimes, like we're doing good out here.
Definitely, for sure, for sure. I mean, people are gonna find ways to relax and just like I love alcohol. I love wine. I love whiskey. Like I like my premium stuff, but the since cannabis sort of became more of a social thing through edibles and drinks, I drink less alcohol. And if we can make people drink less alcohol, man, like that's awesome. That's a really big thing. But that's not the only thing, but that's a big thing. But just helping people relax in a way that's not dangerous, like that's not a bad thing to be doing every day. So yeah, I think that's really cool. And just before I just want to shamelessly plug the edibles as well, because
Oh yeah.
you might have listeners all over America. So you can buy them at tbd-products.com, and we ship to 36 states in America. So yeah, just go on there and try them out.
Yeah, and I definitely will, and I'll be making some content, man. I'll definitely do the Thirsty Thursday, and I'm really curious to try the edibles. I need to branch out into that world a little more. I haven't done a whole lot of hemp derived edibles, so I'm excited to try them.
Yeah, they're cool. I mean, it's hemp derived Delta 9, so it's Delta 9 THC. It's just hemp derived, so they have basically the same effects as the drinks. It's different though, obviously, because the drink has a faster onset, just because it's a drink. The edibles are also made with nano-emulsion, but the um, the the sort of the onset and then the entire journey is twice as long as the drinks. So the onset of the drinks like 7-8 minutes. Onset of the edibles is like up to 20-25 minutes. And the drinks have a tendency to like they last for like 90 minutes, and the edibles have a tendency to last around 180 minutes. So, but that's just because of the form factor. Even if it's the same stuff in it, it's like that's the form factor, because it takes longer for the body to process the edibles than the drinks, basically. But
Got
yeah,
it.
we'll send you some samples so that you can try it out.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, please do, man. I'll do a little unboxing video, man. We'll try them, and then yeah, man. Thanks again for coming on, and then yeah, hopefully we can do another one, man. Maybe touch base in a year or two or however long, and kind of talk some more. Maybe some new cannabinoids came out we can talk about.
Yeah,
Try to
absolutely.
get
And like
more.
we will maybe I can actually talk a little bit more about our Web3 stuff at that point. That would be cool. So yeah, I would super happy to come back.
Cool. And I'll be doing more research on my end so I can have a little to say in the Web3 realm, hopefully.